Hello everyone, my name is Aarti and you're watching HW News. 2 months after US President Joe Biden announced that the country will pull out its troops from Afghanistan by August 31, after almost 2 decades of presence in the South Central Asian country, Joe Biden announced that the US troops would return from the nation. He said he will not push another generation of US troops into war. Whatever they went to achieve, they have achieved it, and now it was time to exit the country. Interestingly enough, when a reporter asked him whether the Taliban takeover of the country was inevitable, his almost immediate and confident answer was no. Let us hear what Biden said then.
I want to be clear. The U.S. military mission in Afghanistan continues through the end of August. We retain personnel and capacities in the country, and we maintain some authority, the same authority under which we've been operating for some time. As I said in April, the United States did what we went to do in Afghanistan, to get the terrorists who attacked us on 9/11 and deliver justice to Osama bin Laden, and to degrade the terrorist threat to keep Afghanistan from becoming a base from which attacks could be continued against the United States. We achieved those objectives. That's why we went. We did not go to Afghanistan to nation build. And it's the right and the responsibility of the Afghan people alone to decide their future and how they want to run their country.
Mr. President, do you trust the Taliban, Mr. President?
Is a Taliban takeover of Afghanistan now inevitable?
No, it is not. Because you have the Afghan troops have 300,000 well-equipped as any army in the world, and an Air Force against something like 75,000 Taliban. It is not inevitable.
That was on July 9th and today is August 16, and this is what Afghanistan looks like today. Chaos on the streets, people are scared, they are uncertain of their future, women are worried about their rights, families and kids. People are thronging to airports trying to board any plane that will take them out of the country. People are so desperate to escape that they are risking their lives and even clinging to wings and wheels of the aircraft. Those who can are fleeing the country, and those who cannot are preparing to spend their lives like they did almost 20 years ago. In a matter of less than a month, their lives have turned upside down with little hope for tomorrow. Within just 2 months of Joe Biden confidently telling the world that Taliban rule is not inevitable in Afghanistan, the extremist organization has taken over the country. So who are the Taliban? Why were they formed? And how and where do they get the money from? We will discuss this in today's video, but before we get into the details, our heart goes out to all those suffering in Afghanistan. With the Afghanistan takeover by the Taliban, the world is staring at another humanitarian crisis right in the middle of a pandemic that is still raging around the world. It's inhuman that people are forced to flee their homes, their belongings at such a time. The road ahead will depend on what the world leaders choose to do. Now let us talk about who are Taliban and let us explain what exactly they do. For many Afghan nationals trying to escape the country, the Taliban takeover reminds them of the horrors of the past, which looked something like this. Women were mostly confined to their homes. They were made to cover themselves fully. Anything that depicted Western culture, films or books were banned. Sharia law was implemented, and those who disregarded it were met with the strictest punishment. Some of the punishments included flogging, death by stoning, and even public execution. So how did the country's reins went into the hands of such barbaric extremist organization? So let us talk about the rise of Taliban. Way back in the 1980s, when the world was still facing the heat of the Cold War, Soviet was gaining hold in Afghanistan. In April 1978, Afghanistan's centrist government, headed by President Mohammad Daoud Khan, was overthrown by the left-wing military officers. The new government had little popular support among the largely devout Muslim and largely anti-communist population. However, they still went ahead and forged close ties with the Soviet Union. They also launched ruthless purges of all the domestic opposition. Although they brought several land and social reforms in the country, insurgencies arose against the government among both tribal and urban groups. and all of these are collectively known as the Mujahideen. All of them were staunch hardliner Islamists. They were not one group but several factions in different pockets of the country. Now, many Mujahideen factions were in fact supported by the US's CIA, Pakistan's ISI, and Saudi Arabia. When the Soviets pulled back in 1989, the Mujahideen groups started fighting each other, leading to a civil war. After the collapse of USSR, the communist government in Afghanistan fell too, the very next year. On the other hand, the Taliban, or students in Pashto language, emerged in the early 1990s in northern Pakistan. It is believed that the predominantly Pashtun movement first appeared in the religious seminaries along the border areas of Pakistan and Afghanistan. These were mostly paid for by money from Saudi Arabia. The Taliban made a promise to restore peace and security and enforce their own austere version of Sharia, the Islamic law, once they are in power. Now, from southwestern Afghanistan, the Taliban quickly extended their influence. In September 1995, they captured the province of Herat, which is bordering Iran, and exactly 1 year later, they captured the Afghan capital of Kabul, overthrowing the regime of President Burhanuddin Rabbani, who also apparently was one of the founding fathers of the Afghan Mujahideen movement that resisted the Soviet occupation in the first place. By 1998, their influence spread so fast that they controlled almost 90% of the Afghanistan. Now, after a prolonged civil war, external influence, the general population wanted stability, so they welcomed Taliban. But after initial few months, Taliban introduced more hardline policies and harshest punishments based on their interpretation of Sharia law. They were accused of various human rights and cultural abuses. In 2001, they threatened to destroy any other cultural influence and eventually went ahead with the destruction of the famous Bamia Buddha statues in central Afghanistan, causing shock and international outrage. Now let us talk about Taliban's ouster from Afghanistan. Now, Taliban had tight control over Afghanistan, but that changed after 2001. The 9/11 terrorist attack on World Trade Center in the US, killing more than 2,700 people. The mastermind of the attack was identified as Osama bin Laden and his Al-Qaeda. He operated from inside of Taliban-controlled Afghanistan. So US requested to hand him over to them, but Taliban refused to do it. So US and allied forces invaded Afghanistan, aiming to stop the Taliban from providing a safe haven to Al-Qaeda and also to Osama bin Laden. Now, they also wanted to stop Al-Qaeda from using Afghanistan as a base of operations for terrorist activities. Many senior Taliban leaders reportedly took refuge in the Pakistani city of Quetta, from where they guided the Taliban after the US forces fled them. But they were pushed back to the large extent due to NATO presence. In the 2 decades since they were ousted from power, the Taliban have been waging an insurgency against the allied forces and the US-backed Afghan government. Now let us talk about the negotiations with Taliban from 2013 onwards. Efforts to strike a peace deal with Taliban began. In 2017, the Taliban issued an open letter to the newly elected US President Donald Trump, calling on him to withdraw the US forces from Afghanistan. After years of negotiations, the Taliban and the Trump administration finally signed a peace deal in 2020. The US agreed to withdraw troops and release some 5,000 Taliban prisoners, while the Taliban agreed to take steps to prevent any group or individual, including the Al-Qaeda, from using Afghanistan to threaten the security of the US or its allies. Well, that was supposed to bring peace in the country. The issue was it did not. In fact, it had the opposite effect. After the deal with the US, Taliban increased their hold on different provinces. Violence in Afghanistan grew to its highest levels in 2 decades. By June of this year, Taliban contested or controlled an estimated 50% to 70% of Afghan territory outside the urban centers, according to United Nations Security Council report. The report argued that the Taliban leadership had no interest in the peace process in the first place. Now let us talk about the women's rights under Taliban. Much of the West was concerned about the rights of women and minorities if Taliban returns to power. Taliban leaders made assurances in the start that women would enjoy equal rights in accordance with what was granted by Islam, including the ability to work and be educated. But earlier this year, Taliban said it wanted a genuine Islamic system that would make provisions for women's and minority rights in line with the cultural traditions and religious rules. Earlier this month, fighters from the group walked into the offices of a bank in Kandahar and ordered 9 women working there to leave. The gunmen escorted them to their homes and told them not to return to their jobs. Instead, they explained that male relatives could take their place, according to 3 of the women involved and the bank's manager. Even today, a day after the Taliban takeover, the first news that has come out of the country is how women journalists are being taken off air in news channels itself. So it is not hard to guess whether a militant organization like Taliban is going to honor the promises made during the deal. Now let us talk about the fifth and most interesting point, how Taliban gets money. The group are able to raise funds through several sources, including the opium and drugs trade. In areas they control, they have taxed farms and other businesses, while the group has also received funding from supporters. In 2016, Forbes listed Taliban as the 5th richest of the 10 terrorist organizations that they had featured with annual turnover of $400 million. Separately, the US officials have said for years the Taliban have gotten money, weapons and training from Russia. It is also believed that Taliban gets its funds to continue the war from Pakistan's ISI and China too. During their rule in Afghanistan, Pakistan was among the only 4 countries that recognized the non-democratic extremist government and last to break the ties with them. As of today, the Taliban has taken over Kabul, President Ashraf Ghani has fled the country, and Taliban has renamed it as Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan. Countries are trying to airlift their nationals from the country. According to a report, the Indian Air Force will airlift Indian nationals and officials stranded in Afghanistan. India has around 500 of its officials and security staff stranded there. The Indian contingent in Afghanistan has also been talking to officials on the ground to be able to move to the airport and fly back to India. Although the Kabul airport has been shut, 2 Air India planes are on standby for emergency. However, Taliban's takeover of Afghanistan is unlikely to be limited to the country's borders. The development will have a spillover effect on geopolitics of the South Central Asia and especially on security scenario. What happens next will affect the world at large. Do let us know what you think about this in the comment box below. For more news and updates, you can log on to www.hwnews.in.